Good day, podcast community. I'm Podcast Pete, and we've got a special guest who's back. We had so much fun the first time, and we solved so many problems in the world. We said, let's solve some more. So I wanted Angela to come back and go into a little bit more of her story and really how we're supporting and helping our seniors out there. So, Angela, if they haven't listened to the first podcast, tell us who you are, what you do, and who you serve.
Perfect. My name is Angela Williamson. I work for a company called OEI, which stands for Outreach Educators and Installers. And what we do is we provide the caption telephone systems that are federally funded. So a lot of times people will actually ask me, how did I get into this? And it's kind of a history of a few different things that came together. One is I was in the medical profession way back in the 80s and 90s. So I have a passion for that helping and health and wellness of someone. But on top of that, I returned to school to get my master's, and that was in something called positive psychology, which not many people are familiar with. They're familiar with the psychology side, but this is positive psychology, which is all about thriving and flourishing at any point you're at in your life. So whatever it is, whether it's an aging thing, whether it's an illness thing, whether it's a financial thing, whatever it is in your life, how do we take that life event and how do we work through it in a way that allows for thriving and flourishing? So that's kind of my personal history. And where that comes in is when we are talking about captioned telephones, we're talking about bridging a gap in communication. And so that bridging the gap in communication has a lot to do with what I personally feel and what the science has shown us is that as we age, we can get into some problems with anxiety, depression, and isolation feelings if we don't have that communication that's strong, that support network, that social network. And so that's what we do with the caption telephones. That's why that's so important to me, is because it allows for that connection that continues regardless of where we're at, whether it's a hearing decrease or whatever the cost is, we're still able to do it. So that's what's important to me.
Since our last time on, I went on vacation for a few days. So my friend who was the best man and known him for 50 years, we all have the same age group of our parents in our 90s, late 80s, even more. So we were talking and I was calling her down there and I'm trying to be a little comical. And so next day he's talking to her and he said, well, she didn't really understand your humor, because I was talking fast. So he said, what has been helpful for her is to have this special phone she can read and listen. So he said, what I've been able to do is talk slower and give her time to process the conversation. And so when you think about the value of a conversation, it's everything. Because a person said, solo we go fast, together we go further. So when you look at together, community, just like you said, isolation, anxiety, depression, I see it. I live here. And I see the ones that are isolated. And there's nothing good about isolation.
There's
being communicate with your family. So what do you tell our viewers? I always love to hear. So that positive psychology, what does that mean? I know the words, but how has that helped you in what you're doing right now?
Well, I think the biggest thing, I go into the homes. I actually, not only do I go and educate and do the expos and the senior centers and all of that and the veterans, and you'll see me kind of all around because I'm all over Georgia. But I go into people's homes and I install. And when I go in to install, I see things that that let me know as a person that I'm doing the right thing and I'm on the right track with what we're doing. And one of the little stories that I have was a lady that was she had married a military man. She had been in the U.S. for over 50 years, but she was originally from England. And he had passed away. Her husband had passed away, and so she was living in an assisted living home. And but her family, her core family, was still in England. Her cousins, her brother, that kind of thing. And because of the hearing aspect, when she would call overseas, she was paying a good bit of money to call overseas, but she couldn't hear what they were saying. So it had become kind of pointless for her to call because she couldn't understand it. So I went in and we put in a CapTel telephone. And when we were there, I said, let's get it set up to where it works for you, because that's important. Technology is challenging enough. It's changing every day. And so it's important to have that support of knowing that somebody's first off going to get you set up right. And then secondly, you have 24-hour support if you need it. And so I said, let's get you set up. And so we set it up and I said, let's do a test call. Let's make sure it's really working. I said, is there somebody you can call in England? And she was like, yes. And so she chose to call a cousin, and the cousin's husband had recently been sick. And so she calls, and sure enough, the cousin answers, and you can literally see she's holding the receiver and you can just see her face change, because now she can hear what they're saying. But not only can she hear what they're saying, she can confirm it through reading what they're saying on the screen. And so when we talk about the CapTel phones, I always tell people our phone system is advanced because it has 4 times the hearing capability of any other phone. So when you're talking about cell phones, when you're talking about the phones that you buy, the little portables for your house, our technology has a clarity and a sound quality and a volume that's 4 times better than anything that's out there. And so that right there allows people a lot of times to hear, even when they have their hearing aids out, even when they're having issues with their ears. And then when you take that advancement and you now pair it with that reading ability to confirm what you're hearing, it bridges that gap. And a lot of times people will read their captions on TV. And so that's one of my big questions. I always say, do you read your captions? And most people will say, absolutely. And all they're doing is checking what they think they're hearing. They're still listening to the TV, but they're checking it that way. And so that's important, that it gives that kind of checks and balances to verify what you think you're hearing you are. So back to my little lady, her entire face changed. She got so excited. I literally think she forgot I was there because they just started talking. And when she finally got off the phone a few minutes later, I asked her, I said, how long has it been since you've talked to them? And she said, it's been between 4 and 5 months. She said, because I couldn't hear them. And so, that's huge. And she was older, so emails were difficult for her. And let's face it, that doesn't have that same personal touch. It just does not. You cannot hear a tone. You can't pick up on somebody's sympathy or excitement when you're reading it in a text or an email. So it's that verbal communication of just being able to hear makes such a difference. And so,
yeah, I mean, to witness that, because you can tell when people, their emotion, their facial expressions react to what's going on. And I always say, I like picking up the phone. I'm not a text.
Me too.
Email. There's no emotion in those kind of communications. It's hearing. And I've even started using AI audio and written for consuming and retaining my books that I read. And so I think, like you're saying, when you put extra senses, your hearing and your visual, it helps the learning possibility. Learning. So I love that. What do you say, like, when others have similar things? Like you said, 4 times you can hear it 4 times better than the average. Because I'll do it where I know her ring on her iPhone is down.
Right.
So you can't always adjust those. You don't know how to
No.
adjust. So does CapTel, when they call, is it a set level, setting a level based on the person? How does the sound?
What we do is when I come out and install, there's several things that I set automatically. And one of them is that when you answer the telephone and you become comfortable talking to somebody at a certain volume, and we have like 3 levels of green and orange and then several reds. And that's a volume indicator that's on the phone. This phone will actually monitor what is a comfortable level for that person that's using the phone. And so what it does is when they answer future calls, it automatically starts at that level. So if you're an orange, then every time you pick up that call, it's going to start at an orange. Now, if you've got somebody on there that's super loud or super boisterous and you want to go down, you can. And there's just a little lever just right on the side of the phone, and it's very easy, and you just push it down or push it up. And we do that with so many different things with the phone. I set the ringtone volume. I set the type of tone, because people have tone deafness, where like maybe some people hear low tones better and some people hear higher pitches better. So we set for that. That's also one of the areas that changes when somebody calls. I set those volumes. So when you're calling and you're speaking to them, it'll automatically put that person's voice in the octave that you're going to receive it best in. It doesn't mean that the voice changes. It still sounds like them, but it changes the tone either to a little bit higher or a little bit lower, so you can receive that information better based on your tone. So there's just so many features. The phone just has amazing features. We're looking at it on the screen here. You can see that there's at the very bottom, there's an all blue button. That's a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week customer service that answers. So if you decide at 2 a.m. in the morning that you want to work on your phone and change something, that's how you do it. You push that button and talk to them. I'm on the road a lot, but when I'm available, I absolutely field calls and help people. It's a very user-friendly phone. So you see here that you can dial a number just like you can an old-fashioned phone. You just pick it up and dial your number. But also what you can't see here, because we've got the wording up, but there's also a contacts list. There's an answering machine. There's a favorites list. There's a call history. And I don't want to sound overwhelming, because it's very simple. It's a touch screen. So that screen that you see that says, "Hi, Grandma,"
Really?
that's actually a touch screen. So you literally just touch, contacts list. If you want to call Angela at CapTel, you touch Angela at CapTel, and then you hit the phone number. So you're literally touching like 2 or 3 components, and it dials automatically. So we've made it super easy. We've done things like adjusted the fonts, because some people read different fonts better. We can go up and down on the size of the font. I had a lady that had macular degeneration, and I wasn't sure how that would work with her. Believe it or not, we were able to get it on our largest font. She was able to see it and read it still. We did leave it in a black and white tone, because that crispness helped her to be able to see it. So we try to take those steps to really ensure that the person is going to be able to use this phone, and not just use it, but love this phone. I have people that call me and they literally are like, "I love my phone." And I'm like, "I'm glad. That's what we're here for. We want you to be able to have that connection back." Sure. And some of the better ones that I have story wise is I'll have somebody call that says, "Can you come out and help me set up my phone?" And I'm like, "Absolutely. Tell me a little bit about where you got it from or whatever." And what I'll find out when they already have their phone is that they've had it for like 6, 7, 8, 9 years. And they've moved from one place to another, maybe from Alabama to Georgia, or they might have come down from like Wisconsin. And so we're nationwide. Wherever you go, I just tell them, unplug your phone, take it with you. When you get there, call us. We'll send somebody out to get it installed and make sure it's up and running for you. So we really try to make that difference and make sure that you have what you need.
How does a person, like when you are connecting with people out there, where do people find out about it? Are they
Mm.
hearing it from other people, or what's
Mhm.
the primary way? Because until about 6 months ago, I had no idea that this existed. I had a
Mhm.
feeling that it was out there.
Right,
You
right.
know, it didn't like, because we went around and around with my mom
Mhm.
on she wanted her flip phone, and she,
Yeah,
she wouldn't
yeah.
give that
My,
flip
my
phone.
mom still has her flip phone, so I don't even try to fight that.
Yeah. Well, we finally got her because we said, like, 3 of your kids are not in your backyard, so
Mhm.
you have to have a way of communicating with them.
Right,
And
right,
it's not about necessarily that you can't hear them; they can't have a conversation.
right.
So, how do people find out about you?
Well, there's a couple of different things we do. We do outreach in the communities. So you will see us at things like different expos, different senior centers, things like that. Those are just where we're literally trying to get the information into the community.
Okay.
But from there, it really is word of mouth. It never fails. I can put a unit in one person's apartment, and within about a week, I'll have 5 more people call from the area, from that apartment complex, and say we want them. It is available to everybody. And I say this, and the reason I say this is because it's a federally funded program for anyone that has hearing loss or decrease. So we're not, and I want to hit a couple of the myths really quick.
Yes.
They think they have to have a phone line or a landline. You do not. We can provide that. You do have to have internet. That's the one thing we do have to have. And that means that if you have like AT&T, Xfinity, any of those big ones that have the modems, either for your TV or your computer, that usually brings the internet into the home, and we can do it through that. If you have a landline, we can connect it via the landline as well. So whether you have one or not doesn't change it. And there's absolutely no fees. You're not going to get a bill in a month. You're not going to get a bill in a year. You're not going to have to pay for the equipment and the install. None of that. There's no fees. We do not file insurance. So you're not going to get something from Medicare saying that we filed your insurance. We don't do that either. Your telephone bill or your internet bill is not going to go up because of us. We don't have anything to do with that either. So there's a lot of things that people are afraid of, and they won't actually take that step. But realistically, when they try it and they realize how good it is, that's when they're like really amazed. We don't have to have any longer an audiologist or a doctor's referral. That used to be the case about a year ago. And that's why you're just now really starting to hear about it in the open market. Used to, it had to come through a doctor's office. Now it does not. I'm actually a certifier. I'm the certifier for Georgia. So they can call me directly it popped up a minute ago, the 678-646-7374. They can call me directly. I can qualify them usually with a few quick questions over the telephone, get them scheduled for an appointment, and come out and get them installed. Usually within about 2 weeks of the phone call, I can get them installed. We do have a couple of installers around Atlanta other than me, but I am the main one for the area. And so usually it's me that goes out. But yeah, so it's now what they call a direct certify. So once they hear about it, if they want to try it, and a lot of people, like I said, they have that hesitancy. They're like, I'm just not sure. I'm not sure I need it yet. I hear that one a lot. I'm not sure I need it yet. And I equate this to a really old story that I had back when I was in high school. I told my mom, I said, I think I might need glasses. And she said, okay. And she takes me to the eye doctor, and they do all the testing. We go back a week later and we get the glasses, and I walk outside and I put them on and I stop. And I look around, and I did not realize how bad my eyes had gotten. I didn't know. And
Yeah.
it's the same with the hearing. So a lot of times people will say, I'm not sure I need it yet. I'm like, ask your kids, ask your friends, because they're going to tell you pretty honestly
Yeah.
if they feel like that you've got a hearing problem. And this is one of those things that is risk-free. If you don't like it, I leave the box, and I'm like, if you do not like this phone and do not want it, you push this button for customer service. They're going to send you a federal FedEx label, put it on the box, put the phone in the box, send it back. No, there's no charge, no penalties. So we really do try to make this so easy for our seniors. And that's my personal goal, is to make sure that seniors have what they need, that they understand it, and that they have the support that they need, because that's that flourishing and thriving I was talking about.
Yes, as we came out of COVID and the
Mhm.
isolation and all the things that went on with it, that social connection is so critical at any age. But then it's in these senior centers. I was talking to a friend of mine
Mhm.
that if you can stay at home, you want to stay at home. You want to be
Mhm.
in your own environment, but sometimes you're forced, whether it's where you
Mhm.
live or
Mhm.
being with your kids. But it's so critical. You move into these places,
Mhm.
you're then isolated from
Right.
your family. So you need that connection.
You do.
You need, the more you're connected to people, the
Mm.
better.
It
So
absolutely.
when you move into a center, if you don't have that connection with your family, it
Mhm.
makes it even more stressful because
Right.
you're trying to fit in. Plus, you've
Yeah.
been disconnected with people that So to have this, I can see
Mhm.
as a way to keep staying connected, because
Mhm.
communication and connection is so critical
Yeah.
as we get a little older, and hearing all the
Mhm.
different things that challenge, just aging in place is
It
just
mhm.
challenging.
It
It's
is. And
challenging.
let's face it, change is difficult. It's
Yes.
just
Oh, yeah.
difficult and it's scary,
Sure.
and so we just try to make that step easier. We try to make it where, and I'm involved in many different senior communities and networks, and we really do try to be a resource across the board. So a lot of times, if I'm somewhere and I'm putting in a phone, but I realize that they have other needs, I may say like, hey, by the way, here's some people that can help you with this, this, and this if you're interested, because we really do want to make sure that that support's there and that they have that ability to, like you said, to age in place if they can, and if not, wherever they're at, that they're comfortable. I do frequently install in assisted livings. That's a big one these days. So I'm all the time working in some of the big high rises. I'm always surprised. I was doing one the other day, and the man lived on the 14th floor, had fantastic views. Yeah,
Wow.
I was amazed. It was downtown in Atlanta. And so we do work with their Wi-Fi connections, because a lot of times people that are in facilities like that, they're
Yep.
like, well, I don't have internet. Well, usually the facility has a common Wi-Fi. And so
Mhm.
what I do is I work with the person that works with that network, and I make sure that network administrator, and I make sure everything works well, and we get that set up through that as well. So there's not really a barrier anywhere for installs, other than if they just flat out do not have internet at all. And I've only had one person the whole time that has not had the ability.
Yeah. I mean, it is, and as technology,
Mhm.
internet is everything. What do you say, what is your number one challenge right now? So we're now not in the
Mhm.
doctor's arena where they have to refer it. Now
Mhm.
that more in the open, what's your biggest challenge that you're
I,
finding in
I
letting
say
people?
there's two challenges. You said number one, but I've actually got two. And the first one is getting past the personal fear. There's always that personal fear of, is it real? Is it true? Am I going to get a bill later? Do I actually need it? So there's that personal fear that we often work with to try to make sure that if someone wants the chance or the opportunity, that they do take that step. But the
Mhm.
second one is to get the information out there. And it really is, because like I said, we're going to events and shows and things like that. But it's a slow process, and there's so much need for it. And so I did a phone yesterday in the morning, and the lady immediately was so excited. She said, "Do you have cards?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "I'm going to give them out at my book club. I'm going to give them out." Like, she loved her phone so much right off the bat.
Yeah.
She was so excited. And I think she took about 40 cards from me. And so I was literally like, "Here, you can have them. It's fine." And what I do with that is I told her, I said, they were a good ways away from where I live. And so I told her, I said, try to get everybody, together that wants one. And I said, and what I'll do is I'll just come down and do a whole day of installs and, from, to the area. And so, 2 days if it's needed. So we really like the word of mouth, and especially when somebody has it and tries it. And Pete, you're a perfect example, because you called and you were like, oh my gosh, I've come across one of these and the person loves it.
Yes.
Because it makes such a difference.
Yes.
One of the questions that I get asked a lot is, how do I make the captioning slow down? Because, as you're having the conversation, the captioning moves, and they say, how do I get it to slow down? And I said, our captioning is based on what the other person's saying. So get your other party to slow down, because, and so a lot of times I tell people, let people know that you're on a captioned phone to slow down a little, because if they'll slow their speaking down, it slows that captioning down. And so that's actually kind of an automatic thing there. So that's probably one of the biggest tips I can give somebody. And these are just kind of things that I tell them when I'm out there. But it really is a life changer. And I always tell all my customers, I'm like, you can't tear it up. Don't worry about it. You're not going to tear it up. I said, if you for some reason lose your connection, call me. I'll come back and figure out what you've done to it. And usually that is, somebody's unplugged something that still needs to be plugged in. And I just tell them, I said, give yourself 2 or 3 days to adjust to it, because you'll really like it. And so usually we make a call or two and let them kind of see how it goes. And then later I said, call your best friend. And I said, just work it out, and you'll see that you're really going to like this process.
Yeah.
And so,
I asked my friend, I said, well, how are you? Because he'll be up. She lives in Baltimore. And so he's up there on a regular basis. And he said one thing that he found was very beneficial is doctors' calls, that the history gave him the ability to see what went on.
Yep.
And so, because we know it's obvious we forget or we, whatever, but he was able to kind of go back and see, because she'll say like, oh, such and such call. And so the whole story of it, conversation, he just went back on the history and go,
and he could see it. Exactly.
Yeah, it was kind of confirmation for him, because we know how important it is to remember details. But as we get older, it's not as easy if you're not hearing properly. But you feel safer knowing that the history's there of calls that come in.
Right.
So to say, well, I didn't hear back from Dr. Jones.
Right.
And then you look at it and you go, Dr. Jones did call, and here's what he said.
Yeah.
So then it refreshes the memory.
That's exactly right. Yeah, this has so many usable features, from the call history, which can be deleted or left to run. That's a choice.
Yeah.
Because I've had some people say, no, I don't want somebody to be able to see my calls, and that's fine too. So you can do it either way. That's the nice thing, is there's personal choices that you can make with this phone. But you have the call history, which shows you the other party's information. So if you have like test results, appointment times, one of my little customers was getting a lot of scam calls. I mean, just tons of them. And she couldn't hear well enough to be able to determine what was real and what wasn't. And now she had that ability to safeguard, and she would be able to say like, no, I know that this isn't right, because she could read it. And then, she could confront them and they would hang up, or whatever the situation was. So it helps with that. It helps with, if you have people that have different octaves that they can hear. It helps with people that have different accents. That's another one. If you have an accent that's harder to understand, you can now read it. And then the answering machine is one of my favorite features, because not only does it record the message, that's the only time the message is ever recorded is on the answering machine, but it records the message and it does the transcription. So you have both parties there. And if you're looking at the screen, you can see underneath the little button kind of over to the left, it's kind of a little color, the green, yellow, and red. That's your volume button. But underneath that, there's a speaker button. And so you have the ability to do just like a normal telephone, hit the speaker button, talk as you're in the room, so you don't always have to have the handset up to your ear. So there's a bunch of different features that really are here that are so beneficial. And like I said, and it's easy to use. We tried to make it so easy that if you have, if you're making a change, like say if you say you want to delete something, then it gives you a red button and a green button. The red button means don't delete it. The green button means do delete it. We tried to make it where it's familiar. And that's, I think, is probably the best thing I can say, is that there's a familiarity to this phone because it has the old-fashioned feel of using a handset. It has the ability to, have the buttons and the touch screen where it's, red and green, and you're not having to try to guess at what do I do.
Yes.
You're not having to try to figure out how to program something or put in codes. It is just so user-friendly. And I tell people, use it to the point that you want to. If you want to build a contact list that's big, build a contact list. If you only want 3 people in there, just put 3 people in there. So we tell them to really just use it to the capacity that they're comfortable with. But the biggest thing is literally this phone can ring, you can answer it, and it starts captioning. You don't have to do another thing to it. So it's that easy.
I love it. I love it. So, Angela, I know we have the number on the screen, but give it to her for our audio listeners.
Okay.
I have a question for you.
Yep. At any point in time you need me, you can call 678-646-7374. That's 678-646-7374. I can handle any CapTel that you need within the U.S. So if you are listening and you have a parent in Michigan or a parent in Wisconsin or wherever they may be, or a friend somewhere, a friend in Florida or whatever, if you call me, I can do the paperwork and get that, sent in properly so that it's quick, and also get that representative for that area to step in and start to handle that for you. Because we want to make sure that, like I said, a lot of times caregivers or family members or friends actually see the needs more so than the person themselves.
Sure.
And so we want to make sure that we are always able to accommodate people, across states and across lines and things like that.
Awesome. I have one more question, but I want to tell just to our audience and our viewers, share this with people because we don't know what we don't know.
Right.
And if your mom or dad are, showing signs that they're short conversations, there's always red flags that you can tell that there's a disconnect starting. You want to be proactive in taking action on these things and not waiting till the depression and the anxiety kicks in.
Right.
Because then it is what it is. It's go into these phases, and if we can avoid it, let people know about it. So what would you say, Angela, what would be the one thing you want our viewers to take home from our time on the podcast?
That as we continue to network socially, it keeps our minds younger. It keeps our minds in better shape. It keeps our ability to enjoy our lives so much richer. And so I think the biggest thing is that in any case, whatever it be, seek out what you need to continue to progress. Don't stop. Just, I think a lot of times people stop because they think that they're too old or that they can't do it or they don't know how to do it. Don't stop. Like, challenge yourself to reach out on any account for what your needs are to get those met, because that's only going to give you a better quality of life and to help you feel more connected.
Awesome. Well, Angela, I want to thank you for educating our seniors and really getting that information out so we can touch more people's lives in a special way and keep that line of communication open between members and friends. So thank you so much for on a Friday afternoon coming in with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.